Hey guys, happy Tuesday. I hope you've had a good day today and that you've been able to just take some time and spend it with the Lord and His Word and in His presence. The chapters that we're going to briefly discuss tonight are Numbers chapters 22 through 24. Now, the first thing most people recognize from these particular three chapters is the story of how a donkey spoke to a man. But more specifically, I kind of want to summarize and focus in on the story of Balaam. He was the non-Israelite prophet hired by the Moabite king Balak, and the purpose of him being hired was actually to curse the Israelites. However, each time Balaam attempts to curse the Israelites, he's compelled by God to bless them instead. So there's a few things that through the chapters we kind of see revealed to us. One, we see how God's protection and blessing is on His people. The story highlights how God's protection is over His people, and despite attempts to harm them, God turns the curses into blessings, demonstrating His sovereignty and care for Israel. I still think that can be applied to us today. That does not mean that we should expect a life free of conflict and free of turmoil. But what that does mean is when someone tries to come against His people, He stands up and He rises up for them. Faithfulness and obedience. Balaam's story shows the importance of obedience to God's commands. Even though he initially intends to curse Israel for personal gain, he ultimately obeyed God's instructions. And that demonstrated that even when he had selfish motives or desires, that God could still use them for His purposes. And that kind of shows us that in those moments of weakness, when we know we should be following God and listening to His instruction, when we still want to do it our way, God shows us grace when we turn back to Him and say, okay, no, I want to do it your way. And He still uses us, even in our weakness. Now, God's sovereignty over nations. That narrative illustrates that God is not only the God of Israel, but also the ruler of all nations. And He used Balaam, a non-prophet or a non-Israelite prophet, to convey His message and demonstrate His authority. He still does that today. He's going to use those who are willing to be used by Him. And I hope and pray that this is a good reminder for you to desire for God to use you in mighty ways and in small ways and in all ways. And then the power of words. So words have power, as seen in Balaam's attempts to curse and to bless. And this underscores the importance of speaking positively and in alignment with God's will. Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So in summary, this story of Balaam, it teaches us about God's protection and blessing, the importance of faithfulness, and the importance of being obedient to God's will. And it reminds us that there's power in the tongue, and there's power in our words. I hope that encourages you, and it challenges you to step out in faith with Him, to desire to be used by Him, and to also remember that we truly have life and death right there on our tongue. And so make sure that you use it for God's glory and to bring Him praise. I love you guys.